What's up with you, Bran, huh? Tom on your tail? Or being chased by those hooligan kids on their motorbikes again, huh? Oh, it's snowing harder now. Is that the problem, is it? Don't like getting your paws cold, do you? I saved a nice bit of haddock for you. Yeah, you can have a dozen cod and a ton of chips while you're at it if you like. I'm getting so many leftovers these days. Oh, I know sales always trail off a bit after all the tourists leave, but it's not usually this bad. People don't seem to be venturing out of an evening now, and that was even before it started snowing. Only had 3 customers tonight, and they were hours ago. I haven't even had that Jambo in trying to catch a free supper, and I'd have given him one and glad, rather than it all go to waste. Well, time to close up. This snow. I hope it doesn't settle. I tell you, Bran, I'm pinning my hopes on a good day tomorrow. Last throw of the dice, really. If I can't do good business on bonfire night, I'm not sure how long I'll be able to stay open, see? And who knows what that means for either of us. What are these things? What was that? Who's there? Jambo, is that you? You okay? Falling over and hit his head again. Jambo! Get yourself over here. You can have some chips to soak up the grog. What is that? Jambo? What have you done to him? Take that! They're keeping clear of you, Brannigan. Hey, I think it's a flea collar. They don't like the smell. Hold them off for me while I go and get some more of this spray. You've heard of the Summer of Love, 1967, San Francisco, turn on, tune in, drop out, kids with flowers in their hair. Well, Barry had his own Summer of Love a year earlier, in 1966. Oh, I'm not talking flower power. There was still mods and rockers round here, suits and scooters, or leather and brill green. But it was the summer when everyone loved Barry. Big Barry and the Islanders had taken Barry Island Rock the number 3 in the hit parade. The holiday camp opened, which meant we had the busiest summer ever. The beaches were crowded with tots with buckets and spades, and mums and dads dozing on deck chairs. Ice cream sales went through the roof. Some days you couldn't get a mivvy for love nor money. The lights of the pleasure park shone out every night, and the queues for my chippy went right round the block. That's Barry's best fish, by the way. Ted Newman, proprietor and cook. Now, the award-winning Barry's best fish, thanks to... well, we'll get to that later. But Barry's Summer of Love ended eventually, making way for, let's call it, the Autumn of Apathy. No music, no lights, no cues. Just silent streets. At least they were silent. Until that night. The night the doctor arrived. The big freeze. Oh, that was bad. Winter of 62, 63. Drifts 20 foot high. Nightmare. It's run out! What do I do now? And he did it! I went to run them bats quickly before the gas board found out what the doctor had done. He did it!
Like Barry does, he rocks. Rock, rock. Oh yeah, Barry just rocks. Rock, rock on. Oh, prepare yourself for a shot to the Barry Island Rock. Well, you're a fan of Sam and you scream for Bill. Barry and Jerry give you such a thrill. You twist with Chubby and you love the King. But wait till you've heard Barry sing. He rocks. Rock, rock. Oh yeah, Barry just rocks. Rock. Rock on. Oh, prepare yourself for a shot to the Barry Island Rock. He rocks. Rock, rock. Oh yeah, Barry just rocks. Rock, rock on. Oh, prepare yourself for a shot to the Barry Island Rock. Well, if you wanna take 3 steps to heaven, you wanna rock around the clock, Oh, prepare yourself for a shout to the Barry Allen Rock.
The three strangers sat and ate lukewarm chips and asked me to explain what was going on. I only wish I could, I said. But I told them everything I knew, how there'd been talk of disappearances, people going missing. But as I came to talk about it, I realised the disappearances didn't fit the usual pattern. It wasn't just young people who'd vanished, and what I'd seen that night made it clear there was something more going on. Seeing that big black cloud eating Jambo? That was the stuff of nightmares. It haunts me to this day. But it reminded me of something too. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I used to see Doreen walking her dog past here most nights. Little dachshund it was. She'd sometimes pop in to get it a battered sausage. Wondered why I hadn't seen her for a while. Oh, I hope those things haven't got her too. Dennis. Does it say his surname? Cooper. Nah, I don't know him. It doesn't sound hopeful though, does it? 80-year-old man wandering off in the middle of the night like that. Oh, I remember when that happened. Over on West Street it was. A woman said she usually heard the clink of bottles as Milky delivered her gold top, but that morning she just heard a load of buzzing instead. People thought she must have imagined it though. I suppose now we know better. Oh, yeah, I know all about this one, because my Brannigan nearly got the blame. When Mr. Jones went to carve the chicken, he found just a carcass. There was a window open, and they thought the cat must have got in. I said, no way was it Brannigan. He might be a tomcat, but he's got manners. That's always a weird day, the day they shut up the park for another year, an ending. And even if the sun's still shining, you feel a winter's on its way. They went back out into the night. I didn't join them. Well, I was pinning all my hopes on having a busy day in the chippy, what with the fairground reopening and the bonfire night crowds. So I needed my sleep. I was a one-man band back then, see? Couldn't afford to get any help in. So, my plan was to head off to the cash and carry first thing in the morning, to stock up for the rush I hoped for. And I thought it best to keep well away from man-eating insects and peculiar, if fairly pleasant, strangers who didn't even know what day it was. Things did not, however, work out quite the plan. So I stood there on the beach while the doctor held up this buzzing wand he called his sonic so a bunch of flesh-eating bugs would come and find us. Half of me was scared, half of me just felt ridiculous. I almost expected David Nixon to pop up and announce I was on candid camera. But I'd seen the body of Jambo. Well, that hadn't been a joke. And here I was, acting as bait. You know, I was born during the First War, fought during the last one when I was only about the age of these lads here. A lot of my mates didn't make it home. If I were these kids, I'd be thanking my lucky stars I don't have to go out there, don't have to wield a weapon against other lads who were just doing their duty too. Risk getting a bullet in my brain or a knife in my chest. But these mods and rockers, they're making up reasons to fight. Attacking each other just because they like different music or different clothes, smashing up stuff just for the fun of it. How daft can you get? There were the rockers waving knives at us on one side and the mods with knuckle dusters or chains wound round their fists on the other. I refused to feel frightened. I'd face Jerry. I wasn't going to let these kids get to me. But all the same, I knew two of us couldn't see off this many armed thugs on our own. So when the doctor climbed up on a rock to address them, I held my breath. We were picking up speed. I'd never gone so fast. We were going so fast it took my breath away. It was like being on a roller coaster at the pleasure park. We left the mods and rockers far behind. We'd lost our pursuers, leaving them slipping and sliding around the beach, and were racing back to my chip shop at incredible speed, maybe 60 miles an hour or more. Then suddenly, when we were still several streets away, we came to a halt. It was so abrupt that I almost flew out of the sidecar. Listen, I said. So I listened. From somewhere nearby came the sound of grunts and thuds. We'd fled one fight, only to find another. Best keep out of the way, I suggested. But that wasn't what the doctor had in mind. 2 males, 1 female, he said, concentrating on the sounds, a hand cupped around one ear. Well, if there was a girl involved, then I suppose we had to intervene. Although, whether we'd be thanked for it, I couldn't say. I'd worked out that it wasn't the doctor's nature to be wary, though. What's that saying? Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Well, I'm not saying the doctor was a fool, but he definitely jumped into situations that would give even an angel pause for thought. We got off the bike and carried on by foot. As we got nearer, we could see them under the streetlights. A suited and booted mod boy kicking down on a rocker lad, all leather and studs. The girl had the short hair and the short skirt of a mod, but funnily enough, seemed to be on the side of the rocker. Well, it's a good thing someone was, because the lad was being thrashed. Doctor might not act like any doctor I knew, but he patched Elvis up all right. I held the ladder while the lad climbed up to fix the sign. Wonderful things, neon signs. When I was a kiddie, they called them liquid fire. They seemed like magic. Now, well, I know they're just glass tubes with gas inside and you stick a few thousand volts through to make them light up, but they still seem a bit like magic to me. And unfortunately, I'm no magician. If I were, I'd have summoned up a load of customers. I've always tried to keep my shop well maintained. A tip-top chip shop, I like to say. And you have to be a bit of a jack of all trades running a place by yourself. But neon, that's a specialised area. So, for this lad to turn out to be an engineer who knew all about neon signs, well, that was a stroke of luck for me, I can tell you. It wouldn't give a very good impression, a broken sign, and the last thing I needed was something that'd put customers off my shop. The doctor was off to the pleasure park, and so were our two new friends, who the doctor insisted on calling Elvis and Twiggy. Although, to be perfectly honest, he definitely wasn't the king, and she didn't look much like the model who people were calling the face of 1966. Rory and Amy were already at the fairground. So, what about me, you may be wondering? Well, getting caught up in a Mods vs Rockers battle had been quite enough for one morning, to say nothing of the swarm of blood-sucking insects, and I knew that if I didn't get on with slicing a sack full of potatoes, I wouldn't be able to open up the shop. On top of all that, there was still flurries of snow in the air. Snow at the beginning of November. All I wanted to do was shut myself in my little kitchen and pretend none of this alien madness was happening. So I opened my mouth to say goodbye to the doctor, adding a little secret good riddance inside my head. But I just couldn't do it. There's something about him, see? He just gets on with doing things, however crazy or dangerous they are. And for why? Because he wants to help people. He's not from Barry. He could have turned round and left us to it, but he didn't. He was acting to help me and mine. So I decided the least I could do was try to lend a hand. I'm not saying I thought I'd be a lot of help to him, mind. I just thought I'd better try. So I said, I'll come too. And we all went to the pleasure park together. Yes! The shrimping net was ours. When I was little, I'd have fun trying to catch butterflies. Not to hurt them, mind. I always let them go, but the stakes were never this high. The doctor crept up on the moth, still asleep on top of his dodgem pole, his shrimping net held ready. But at the very last second, the creature must have sensed something. Just as the net came swooping down, it flew away. Not far, just onto another pole further inside the dodgem area. The doctor tried to chase after it, but a fairground worker blocked his path. Oh, you won't believe this. Its wings have got, like, a pattern on them, a network of veins, a sort of spider's web. And it's the same colour as my neon sign used to be. In fact, I think that's what it is. Neon. This is, I think you'd call it the exoskeleton, like its shell. It looks very shiny, very strong, not fragile like a normal moth would be. Now that is horrible. Like something out of a horror flick. Blood! And human blood too, I'm guessing. It's been feeding. I think this is it, Doctor. It seems to be glowing and I can see something surrounding it. It's just not quite clear enough. Can you waggle the aerial a bit or whatever it is you have to do? That's it. Keep it right there. That's much clearer. Oh, it's all lit up like a neon sign. And what is that around it? Does that give you the information you need? While the doctor was explaining to us what we had to do next, Elvis was switching on all the neon signs, helped by Twiggy. We could track their progress as the lights came on one by one across the pad. gravity wraiths! And just like that, the adventure was over. The moths had vanished into their own dimension and Barry Island was safe. There'd be no more disappearances. The snow had stopped too. The doctor reckoned it had been caused by leaks from the rift agitating the clouds or something like that. We made our way back to the shop, where we were joined by Elvis and Twiggy, who made a quick getaway when the beach party organisers turned up to find out who'd set off all their fireworks. Of course, I planned to honour my promise of free chips for everyone. I knew I was throwing away profit, and the shop might have to close, but when you've just saved the world, that doesn't seem quite so important. The only trouble was, the potatoes were still in their sack, and the oil was still cold. I put everyone to work, cutting chips and mixing batter. I caught the doctor tweaking my recipe, which I was a bit annoyed about. He showed me the jars he'd produced from his pockets. Pink rock salt, balsamic vinegar, coconut oil, turmeric. He claimed he'd picked them up in the cash and carry earlier, but that sounded like a load of nonsense to me. He said it would produce food years ahead of his time, and I should trust him because he knew a lot of foodies, whatever they are. I was going to throw that batch away, but then I tasted a chip, and wow, I was sold. Best chip I'd ever eaten. I didn't take up the doctor on his offer to whip up a batch of fish fingers and custard, though. I think Barry had suffered enough for one day. That's one sack of potatoes done. That's one sack of potatoes. And we did. We rocked the night away, and so did all my customers, dancing around and eating the best fish and chips anyone had ever had. And that's official. One of the customers that night turned out to be a food critic, and before I knew it, the doctor's secret ingredients had led to award after award and a chain of chip shops across Wales. One day I was facing ruin, the next, wow. All thanks to the doctor, of course. I felt a bit guilty that I was getting rich on his recipe, but I don't think he'd have minded. I couldn't ask him. I never saw him again, or Rory, or Amy. They vanished somewhere near closing time. as everyone was distracted by fireworks outside. Someone must have found a few more boxes. The doctor left me a note, though, on top of the pile of clothes I'd lent them. It said simply, "So long, and thanks for all the fish and chips." Jeff and Sylvia kept in touch for a while. I got an invitation to their wedding, and a year or two later, I heard they'd had a daughter. But we drifted out of touch after that. Their daughter'll be quite grown up by now. I wonder how she turned out.
Well, if you wanna take 3 steps to heaven, you wanna rock around the clock.